So although we haven't gotten the leaks right now, we just got a bunch more information and a sneak peek related to Boruto and the newest chapter that is about to be released. So this is what we're going to be talking about in today's video, as there's something quite interesting that we do get. We get a Q&A session from Ikimoto, where he does end up answering some of the questions, alongside the sneak peek that has also been released. We're going to talk about the sneak peek first, but the Q&A session from Ikimoto is going to be something that is fully released later, but we got one question that was already released, and they're doing it for the anniversary of the Boruto series. So let's first begin with the sneak peek, and as you can see right here, we get to see Boruto and Jura fighting, something that almost everybody predicted was going to happen due to the fact that the main reason Jura is pulling up is because of Boruto. But what's quite interesting is that Jura first spawned where the claw grinds were, meaning the fight between Mitsuki, Iyara, Yado, and Sarada. That's the fight in which we first saw Jura pop up, and we saw that in the first sneak peek. But with this sneak peek, which is likely happening a little bit later after the panel that we saw, so this is near the later stages of the chapter, I believe. It could be in the middle, could be near the end, but we do see a confrontation between Boruto and Jura, which does mean that the time has come between Boruto and Jura, and there is going to be casualties in this fight, as we clearly do know that Kashin Koji didn't want this to happen, as this would literally be ruining all their plans. Jura could have done something quite interesting where maybe he does take somebody hostage, leading to Boruto having to fight Jura instead of teleporting. This could be something that happens, but also from the pillars that we do see here, those pillars were a lot closer to the Matsuri and Konohamaru fight that was taken on, as one of the pillars was used to sit on and the other pillars were part of the background. So this could end up telling us that this fight is taking place closer to Matsuri and Konohamaru. So that also adds a lot more interest into that fight, because we do see Boruto's legs on one of those pillars. So that is interesting. I do love the art. Boruto is looking majestic as usual. But if we go a little closer into what is happening, we do see what some people have pointed out on Twitter be a little bit of inspiration from the Dragon Ball series. We do know that Boruto has just cut Jura's arm, a small piece of Jura's arm. It's not that it's cut off, but we do see a scar on Jura's hand. But the part where Boruto tries to hit next is where the claw mark is, and we can see right there that it is a bit of a moment between Trunks and Goku, or we'd have Goku who had one finger out blocking Trunks' sword attack with just one of his fingers, and something similar is happening right here between Boruto and Jura. Could this tell us that maybe the claw marks add more durability and armor to the Senju? That is an interesting thing to talk about when it is not used to end up going through it. When they're not activating that ability from code, they can almost use it as some sort of a shield, as Boruto was able to cut his skin, but he wasn't able to cut the finger where there was the claw mark. So I do believe that it does add a bit of durability. But one thing that we do see here is that maybe Boruto on some way is keeping up with Jura. Maybe Boruto has come up with a plan to deal with Jura in this instance. It is a little early to say from just this one panel, so obviously there's a lot of grace. But just looking at this panel right here, Boruto at that moment may have been the person who ended up catching Jura off guard. And if he did so, maybe he did so using the Fly Raijin at that instance, where he was able to surprise attack Jura and pop in at that moment. So maybe this is not taking place in the place where we saw Matsuri and Konohamaru. Maybe Boruto used a Fire Raijin to appear near the area where Mitsuki, Sarada had their battle between Ryu. But just with that pillar, it might not be the case. Maybe Boruto used the Fire Raijin in a closer distance so that he could catch Jura off guard by going to his blind side. But in this instance, it looked like it worked, but Boruto wasn't able to do the most damage as Jura quickly reacted. But from this panel right here, I'm already seeing something quite interesting take place. So with this one sneak peek combined with the other one that we do have, we do know that the battle between Boruto and Jura has just begun, and it is the beginning stages of this whole fight. Maybe it does take 2 to 3 chapters, where at the end of one of these chapters, we do hear that Kawaki got his limits removed, and he is making an appearance. Whether he makes an appearance fast enough, as we do know that he doesn't have the Flyer Raijin, and we do know that we're in the land of wind, which is, from what I do remember from OG Naruto, it takes around 3 days for a ninja to get there. So this might take a bit of time for Kawaki to get there from the Lee village. So maybe we get an impressive speed feat where Kawaki is able to get there maybe in an hour or maybe in a couple hours, which would be pretty impressive to see. Or it is something completely different, where Kawaki has to wait for a bit of time to pop up. And we also can't forget the fact that Kawaki does have the karma and is able to utilize it. So he can simply spawn there whenever he feels like it. There are various ways that Kawaki could end up making in the battle. But what I do believe is that in this chapter, we're going to see the beginning of the fight between Boruto versus Jura, where it first began with Jura popping up in that first sneak peek panel, and then in the later parts of the chapter, Boruto and Kawaki, Boruto versus Jura ends up happening, where after that we have a Kawaki who starts being worked on as one of the cliffhangers for this chapter, where we see Amado working on Kawaki. And then in the next chapter, maybe as a cliffhanger, we see then Momoshiki start to make an appearance in Boruto, where Kawaki is now almost there, or he has arrived, seeing that Boruto is down, and Momoshiki, a bit like what happened in the fight versus Ishiki, where they were all in that different dimension, and Momoshiki did make an appearance with the Byakugan, and we saw then later on in the chapter that came, he did make the full appearance and took away Sasuke's Rinnegan. In this case, we could see Kawaki make it to the battlefield with Boruto, who is on the ground, and Momoshiki on the verge of taking over. And then in the chapter that follows, Momoshiki does end up either helping Kawaki fight versus Jura, or being even more of a nuisance towards that objective. Those are the paths that I believe that the story could end up taking. So that's most of what I have to say concerning the fact that we do have this new sneak peek that came out. But something that is quite interesting, and I do love the fact that they're having this, at least once a year we get like a Q&A session from Ikimoto. I didn't see that take place in the other chapters. We literally just got like either a picture for the anniversary or something like that. But seeing how much they're promoting Boruto TBV Vortex due to its success, I'm quite happy to see that we're having this moment where Ikimoto answers a lot of questions, as there are a few questions that I have and multiple other people do have. So the only question that was released for the moment, and we're going to get more of these questions later on, maybe as part of the volume release where Ikimoto answers a few questions. But the first question is this, and it's asked, where and how did Himawari live after the catastrophe? And we know that sunflower is the direct translation of what Himawari means, so this is what is said when we see this right here. And this is the answer that Ikimoto ends up giving. He says, at her own request, she lives at the Uzumaki residence, doing all the household chores. Himawari feels that her parents will return someday, so she tries to protect their place to stay. And this is quite interesting right here, as she's kind of living that OG Naruto lifestyle. Without their parents, she is just at the crib alone, taking care of pretty much everything. But for her, she has the resolve that Naruto and Hinata are not dead, and someday they will end up coming back. And that's pretty impressive from Himawari. It is sad to see for sure, and I would have expected her to probably live either with Sarada or somebody else, but we're seeing the path that the story is going. This is at her own request, so we're definitely not blaming anybody for the fact that she is living alone. This is her decision due to her conviction and belief that Naruto will end up coming back, but it doesn't take away from the fact that it's pretty hard to see a young girl like her basically live alone, and it's almost a repeat of what happened with Naruto. But in this case, the village doesn't hate her, and she still has that support, as we do end up seeing that Team 10 has taken the time to train her. We do see that in the beginning of the manga of Boruto TBV Vortex, so it is something to still be happy about, but we can't take away from the fact that she is one of those people that are affected in some way. We did hear from Momoshiki that those who did not fall to omnipotence would suffer the most. We see that with Sarada and Sumire. But unlike those other people, unlike the fact that it still kind of works on Himawari, the omnipotence still works on her, she still has a belief that deviates from the popular consensus of Naruto being dead by the hands of Boruto. She believes that Naruto and Hinata are fine, and that Boruto may have an explanation or something that they do not truly understand. And it is quite impressive. I don't know if it has to deal with Kurama or not, but it is still something good to see, especially from a character like Himawari, who has grown up with Boruto and Kawaki being part of their family. And if she did end up hating Boruto, believing that it was Kawaki, then I would really want to see how Kawaki is feeling. Oh, some people might say that, oh, why is Kawaki not living with Himawari? We have to remember the fact that he ends up living in that new guarded place where Mitsuki was one of the guards, as we saw in the door opening, but Kawaki is living with Ida and Damon in that place to kind of keep guard of Ida and everything that is going on. But I know that from Shikamaru's perspective, is to also keep a guard on all of the threats in Konoha, which does include Kawaki in some way, as he is an Otsutsuki, and that we see that Shikamaru has kind of been alleviated from the effects of omnipotence, still believing that Boruto is who he said he is, even though he will eventually forget. So those are the leads on my side. This is going to be a very important chapter for everything that happens. I will make a separate video when the Q&A questions are released. Let me know your thoughts and concerns in the comment section below. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed. It's been your boy Dynasty, and I'm out, bruh.